And we are live today, you guys. Thank you for joining us. This is Oscar Cielo Staten, and we are live with Michael the Wansley. So he, you can see him right there. You can kind of know where he's from.
They
I
never
don't know. I don't know if he can sing a line or
I
right
gotta
now
do it,
later or
Charles.
not. But
If you're wondering who Michael the Wansley is, I'm the guy who sings, I'm gonna pop some tags, only got $20 in my pocket. I'm looking for a come up. This is something awesome.
oh my God, I got him to do it at the very beginning of the show. This is awesome.
Hey man,
Thank you. Thank you.
try to do that for the rest of my life. Come on.
That is so cool. So, what's been happening with you since the big I I just can't imagine what that has been like for you since that whole thing got started and you rose to fame and now you're a Grammy Award winner. Tell us about that.
So, I was minding my own business, testing software for a medical software company in downtown Seattle, and got a phone call to go sing for a guy that I'd never heard of. And I met him for the first time, and he met me, and basically he and his producer described what the song was like. I mean, I'd had experiences singing hooks before, so this wasn't anything out of the ordinary. I just didn't know this guy. And they explained the song and played the music, and I sang what came out of my mouth. They liked it. We fine-tuned it. They put me in the booth, and 45 minutes later, I was going home. And
Wow.
didn't think anything of it. And then all of a sudden, August 29th of 2012, the video drops because they asked me to be in the video, which I thought was really surprising. And you see the results of that. I was surprised they wanted to put the camera on me and just have me sing. Really? I mean, I couldn't. It had been weeks since I had actually sung it. I didn't remember the words. That's one of the things they still tease me about. But that song blew up, and I can tell you that I've been. My first memory is singing on a schoolyard in 1967, singing for kids who didn't think I knew songs on the radio, and I've had musical aspirations all my life, and every single one of them has come true in the last 3 years. August 29th was the 3-year anniversary of this song. And
Right.
every single thing that I've ever dreamed of has happened in that 3-year period.
I can't imagine what that was like for you to just go and sing this hook and not think much of it. I remember I guess I'll tell you my experience with your voice the very first time. I was out at the club and this crazy song came on that I'd never heard before.
Yeah.
And then I hear your hook. but when you first see the video, it's not you. It's this big girl.
It's this big girl. I know.
And it's so funny.
2 minutes, 53 seconds. They called it the reveal.
It's the funniest thing. I don't know if you really notice that when that video comes on, it's like we want to know where that voice is coming from, and it's this girl. It's the funniest thing when and then you come on finally. It's like, oh, finally,
yeah,
Wanz is there, and it's
believe
just
me, there's not much about that song I don't know.
So what's been your trajectory with the song? I imagine that you guys, joined Macklemore on tour, Macklemore and Ryan Lewis, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and, the song started taking off in September of 2012, and like I said, I had a full-time job, and I'd come into work every day. I'd go home at night and hit refresh on YouTube, watching the numbers go up. Totally, it was blowing out the back of my head. It was amazing. I'd never seen anything like this before.
Right.
Let alone be a part of it. I'd never seen it before. And I mean, even the day that it came out was the first day that I ever looked at Macklemore's other videos, and it became very intimidating for me that this is real. I mean, this is really happening. So I made myself available to go on tour. Took the rest of my vacation and paid time off to go on tour. and I had like 9 days. And you know, it's the first time I'd ever been anywhere. It's the first time I had ever been on the road. Now you have to keep in mind, I moved to Seattle in '86 playing in a band, and I've been playing in bands on and off since 1986. And here it is, 2012, and I'm finally going on the road.
Right.
You know, 4 days in, they say, we want you to join the tour permanently. And then, you know, it's like, wait a minute, I have this full-time job with stock options and health benefits and the whole, it's great money and stuff like that. And, you know, I'm just asking for like 3 more days off so I can finish that leg of the run and then come back to my job.
Right.
Well, they didn't, my boss and HR didn't get back to me until after we had played a sold-out show at the Fillmore in San Francisco. Now, for people of a certain age, that venue is like Mecca. And I'm one of them. I used to listen to AM radio broadcasts on Saturday nights from the Fillmore. And here I am standing in the middle of the floor getting ready to play a sold-out show there. And I mean, it's one of those moments. And I have a lot of those moments from the last 3 years. But this was one of the first ones where I'm standing there and I'm looking at all these pictures on the wall of posters of the Cowsills, the Doors, the Rolling Stones, B.B. King, Muddy Waters, Stevie Wonder. Name somebody. They have all played that room. And it was so overwhelming to be in the presence of that. I just broke down and cried. I cried for like 10 minutes. I couldn't even stop. It was amazing. But yeah, the next day, it's like I'm talking to HR and they said, you know, when can we expect you back? And I said, you know, at my age, a chance like this is probably never going to happen again. So I got to stay out here. And since then, you know, I've been on 3 major television shows. I've toured. I've been in. I've gotten a Grammy. I've been all over the world, performed for anywhere from 1,500 to 75,000 people. And like I said before, every single dream that I ever had as a singer and musician happened over the course of 2.5, 3 years.
And what is that feeling? Is there a way to describe that feeling? What it feels like when you?
Yeah, it's, you know, when it's happening, the tour schedule was so frantic, you know, it was like drinking from a fire hose. I mean, most of 2013 was like drinking from a fire hose. You know, you go out for 8, 10, sometimes 15, 20 days, and you come back and you're home for a week. And then you go back out again for another 10 days, and then you're home for 3 days. And then, you know, you're always going places. And travel, you know, is like you're on a bus or you're on a plane. And, you know, sometimes you sleep on the bus and sometimes you sleep in a hotel, and, you know, everything's all laid out. It's very, very organized, very, very scheduled. But it's like this because you got to be certain places at certain times to allow for setup. And then you do the show, and then you got to get to the next place. Right. So, you know, tour life is a lot of work that I think people really don't realize.
So you don't really have time to relish it, to really.
Not the relishing moments are very few and far between. You know, I have a boatload of pictures that I've archived that I still haven't even gone through. You know, that I took pictures at every show because it was like, this is like dream come true stuff.
Right.
I mean, I've dreamed for this. You know. And, you know, to be on Ellen or Saturday Night Live. I remember when Saturday Night Live was new, pal. And here I am standing side stage getting ready to go on at Saturday Night Live. And, you know, right when the music started playing, when we were taping the performance, you know, I'm thinking of my grade school, middle school, high school, college friends who are having parties to watch me on this show. And I'm thinking of all the choir and music camps I went to. And I'm thinking of all the tours that my jazz choir went on and all the bands that I played on. And the music starts. And the first thought that pops into my head was, God built you for this.
Nice.
And then I went on stage and I did what I did. And, you know, now it's etched in history.
You mentioned a little bit about your training, choir camps and music school. Tell me a little bit about that. Like, what was elementary, middle school, high school as far as musical background? Anything that you did there?
Yeah, you're talking to a guy who grew up on the radio, and I mean back then in the radio, in the late '60s, early '70s, the radio played everything, almost everything. It's not like now where there's your hip hop station and they only play 20 songs. There's your
Right.
pop station and they only play 20 songs. There was probably a third of the number of stations, but each one of those stations played everything in and around a style of music, not just a genre. So you had your rock stations, but rock included John Denver and the Beatles and Grand Funk Railroad and Chicago and Moody Blues and Stones, and your R&B stations were everything from Chuck Berry all through Motown, Stax, all that stuff, right? It was wide
Right.
open. So that's what I grew up learning I could sing with the radio. And that was what my mom calls the gift. I could emulate exactly who I was listening to. By the time I got to like 8, 9 years old, I was singing in choir at church, and that translated into middle school. I was in I'd been singing in church for years before I got the junior high choir, but it's like I've been singing second tenor in junior high school and learning secular music and learning how time and measures and flats and sharps worked. And I had an educator who, by the time I was in 9th grade, he showed me what a triad was and how to do it on a piano. So I spent the summer between 9th grade and 10th grade going to high school teaching myself how to play piano, because there was a piano in our house. And my mom wanted me to take lessons, but the piano teacher wanted me to learn all this Bach and crap. I wanted to learn how to play bread and get girls with "Baby, I'ma want you, baby, I'ma need you. You're the only one who cared enough to hurt about." I wanted to get girls, man. But yeah, high school was another lights out choir teacher who exposed me to things like Carmina Burana and more challenging modern classical composers. I actually had a talent for percussion because in 6th grade I wanted to play trumpet, but the director discouraged me and told me, "I don't know, your lips might be a little big." And I didn't know anything about Dizzy Gillespie or Miles Davis or I didn't know anything, Chet Baker. I didn't know anything about those guys. So I picked up drums because my brother, who was older, he played drums, and I used to mimic him. So of course songs come on the radio. What's the first thing I'm doing? I'm playing drums. The first chair drums all 6th grade, without even learning how to read music. I didn't start reading drum music until my junior year in high school. But I had a director who encouraged me to do that and encouraged me to, this is your major keys, these are your minor keys, know the difference, and these are your chord progressions: 1 4 5 1, 1 2 6 4 5 1. And that led me to Central Washington University.
So do you attribute some of that to those educators? Do you feel like you had a good music education growing up?
I had a great musical education. I had 4 guys, 4 men who honed and made me hungry to learn more about music. It wasn't about seeing what was on the page. It was interpreting the text. It was about phrasing. It was about dynamics. It was about the story of when the music was written and the composer who wrote it. It was a great preparation for part of what I experienced in college. But I really had no idea what I was getting into when I went to college to be a music education major, because music, that's all I knew. That's what I knew. And when I went there, jazz to me was Chuck Mangione and George Benson. I didn't know. I didn't know. But what I walked into was a legacy of big band jazz that had been going on since the early 70s. And the guy who was teaching it, he graduated high school and went on the road with Woody Herman. He lived it. He knew it. And so I learned about Lady Day and Aretha Franklin and Ella Fitzgerald and Joe Williams and Mel Torme. And that's where the rubber really meets the road. Everybody else knew Sinatra, but man, you don't get much better than Johnny Mathis and Mel Torme in my book. Those are 2 of the most unsung classic jazz male vocalists ever,
Nice.
especially Mel Torme.
Yeah.
You know,
Wow.
so but you know, I learned. I taught myself how to play. I got better at drums. I taught myself how to play guitar when MTV came on, because they used to show people playing music.
Back in the day.
Back in the day when they actually showed music on music television.
Imagine that.
Imagine that. But you know, I learned more about guitar from AC/DC and Def Leppard and Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers than, you know, years of taking guitar classes.
Wow.
But I just, you know, I could learn by ear. That's what I'd always done. So the natural progression was, wow, you know, I could play stuff by ear. You put a bass in my hand, because I'm telling this guy in the basement of my house, you're not playing this bass line right. He goes, oh yeah, well you play it. And I did. Never picked up a bass before in my life. I just figured out where the pitch was, figured out where the notes were. All of a sudden he was out of a job. In the summer of '82, I got a book and taught myself how to play bass guitar, and so I played bass and been in bands ever since.
Nice. So you're a gifted guy.
Well, I don't know about that. You know, the thing about it is that, you know, what I got from the early education. When I say early education, I mean middle school all the way through college. Well, you know, what I got was I was taught how to learn more about what there was to learn, you know, and it just grew. In junior high, I learned a little bit about secular music and you know, 4-part harmony and that sort of stuff. But by the time I got to high school, it was more intricate, 5-part, 6-part harmonies. And, you know, the difference between Gregorian music, Baroque music, romantic music, modern music, pop music. And then but when I got to college, it was everything.
Yeah. You what you're saying reminds me of what someone might be telling an aspiring artist, someone young who you know, thinks of one genre of music and wants to specialize in that, and that's all they listen to, that's all they do. And it sounds like, and you hear it in many different arts, that you know, being well-rounded is important. You know, hearing you talk about Def Leppard and Gillespie and all those things, you know, like being able to be well-rounded. What can you say to the youth right now, to young kids that actually kids that look up to you, sir, because you are, you know, you probably sing their theme song.
Well, I'm somebody that they recognize, but you know, just like I had people that I recognized when I was a kid, when I was younger, you know. But this is what I have to say: the more you know, the more you can do. It's that simple. I used to be a purist, or when I got to college, I really didn't like rock and roll. If it wasn't the Beatles, Grand Funk Railroad, Chicago Transit Authority, or Sly and the Family Stone, Earth, Wind and Fire, Commodores, I really didn't want to hear it.
Right.
But I acclimated to the environment that I was in, being that, you know, I was in an environment where there weren't a lot of black people. And I learned, you know, that an A major chord, whether it's played by the Beatles or AC/DC or the Stones or Bread or Joe Cocker, it's still A, C sharp, E. It's still an A chord.
Right.
And then it got into, well, why is it different? Why is the A chord that they played in '65 different from the A chord that Hendrix plays? And why is the Hendrix chord different from the one that the heavy metal band Crocus plays? And why is that different from Rush? And why is that different from Lee Ritenour or Stanley Clarke? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
What I figured out is that, you know, there's only 12 semitones in an octave. And the challenge is, how can you arrange those notes to make it sound unique? Which, if you think about the history of music, it's been documented since the mid-1200s and before. How it's the same 12 semitones. that
Yeah.
made all the music over the centuries. So how are you? This is what I'm asking you, you out there. I'm asking you, how are you going to arrange these notes to sound different? Sure, you can make them. You can make them sound like Ty Dolla $ign. You can ask it to Katy Perry or whoever, but it's the same 12 semitones, dog. And it's up to you and what's here and how much you know that makes it different because you are unique.
Right.
And this is the thing that I learned after college. I think the great thing about my college experience is it taught me to never stop learning because there's always something more to know. The second that you think you know everything is the very second that you stop learning anything.
Right. It reminds me of that Bare Naked Ladies song that says, it's all been done before.
Exactly.
You know?
And that's true. Yeah, that's true. I mean, you know, look at Sir Mix-a-Lot and Nicki Minaj. She reached back and found a booty song for her.
But you know what? That's the beauty of it. You're right. There's so much collaboration and new things coming up. I mean, just, you know, Macklemore doing that song without you, that's unthinkable, you know? I mean,
there'll always be a recording of me doing it, but there won't be anybody else singing it because you're right. You know, that's part of the character of the song. And I've always said that it's the combination of those three elements that came together and formed the lightning in the bottle.
Right.
Because you can't make that happen. You can do your best at it and stuff like that, which I'm watching the experiment now that he's released, you know, new music and he's got a new record coming out and I'm not on the new record. We didn't do any collaborating and you know, for me that's disappointing, but I understand for him as an artist, why go over ground that you've already walked on? He has always been the type of person who wants to push the envelope, find something new, experiment with different timbres and styles and try to mix them together. That's the nature of hip hop. I mean, the nature of hip hop is taking somebody else's style and stuff and incorporating it into something that you can identify with. That's how hip hop started, which, you know, I'm not having any fun watching people totally, you know, lambaste him and say this isn't hip hop. And I'm going, dude, it's exactly what hip hop is. But hip hop in Seattle is not like hip hop in Brooklyn, which is not like hip hop in Atlanta, which is not like hip hop in Chicago, Houston, LA, or anywhere else. You know, every place is unique, and the people who like it are going to like it. Get over it.
Right. Yeah, it's the guy is really cool, and I'm glad that that you got to be part of that song because I mean you make the song. I mean you really do. Which leads me to ask you like what's next for the Wanz? What's happening and musically. You know, you have a lot of stuff going on work-wise, but you know, musically, what's next? What can we expect from you?
So here's the bad part. You know, nobody ever really do people ask what was the bad part about all of it. Well, the bad part is like there was a TV character named Urkel, right? And people of a certain age, they do exactly what you do. They laugh because they remember Urkel. Urkel has never done anything other than play Urkel. He's tried to do other things, but everybody associates him with that character. And so 2014 for me was trying to figure out how to get out from underneath that suit.
Right.
Establish myself because, you know, I write other music. I mean, not very many people. If you go to SoundCloud and do a search for The Wanz, you're going to find music that I wrote back in 2009, 2010 before I ever met Macklemore. But it's weird because a lot of that music is about being an individual, finding your way. I mean, I did a video for one of the songs and it's called Get Lucky because you know, I stopped believing that the dream was going to happen for me. You get to be about 35, 40 years old and the dream of being famous and popular and all that other stuff kind of goes away. And, you know, I didn't expect any of what happened to happen. And so after it happened, it's like, you know, it's like being at Disneyland. You want to stay, you know, you want it to keep going, but you have to manufacture product and you have to gain your fan base and your fans have to keep you there.
Right.
And that's the thing that was challenging for me because I know so much about so many different styles of music. It became very challenging to decide what I was going to sound like. how I was going to look. And there was, you know, because of my age, there's nobody out there who knows how to, you know, this is what you do. There was nobody. You ask 5 different people, you get 5 different opinions, and the great that add that to the 30 you already have in your head, and it just leads to weeks and weeks of I don't know. But you know, the longer it's been since 2014, the more that what's come out is exactly where I was. You know, you got to keep in mind, in the spring of 2010, or this in the spring of 2012, you know, I had my youngest son living with me. He was you know, graduating high school, and I was working a day job and making beats on the bus and coming home and getting him into my studio and just recording the stuff that came from my heart.
Right.
You know, and now that all this has happened, you know, nobody wants to make you famous unless they're going to make themselves a lot of money.
Exactly.
They don't build artists anymore. You know, they used to build artists like Springsteen and U2, and they were built. You know, there used to be something called A&R. You know, they would develop an artist. Now an artist has to develop themselves, and so that's the hopper that I'm in right now. You know, and I've made an impression on enough people that they're sending me music, and I'm trying to well, how do I write? You know, I can't really write for, you know, the club scene. Dude, I'm 53 years old. Oh, you know, I don't see the same thing at the club as everybody else did. You know, I don't turn up, I don't get high, I don't drink. So a lot of today's hip hop I can't really relate to. So the challenge is, how do I take my story of what I know? Because I know there are people who also have that in common with me. Right. You know, they're either sick and disgusted with it, they've outgrown it, or they don't want any part of it. And those are my people. And how do I speak to them? What story do I tell them in a beat that they can, you know, whip and nay on? You know, how do you do that? Go with Wanz, sing that one song, do it once, do the one, you know, do the stanky ones, do the stanky one. I don't know.
And it's your unique story, though. It's your unique story, because you had this I don't want to say sudden rise, but you know, this phenomenon that was Thrift Shop, and now you're onto something different. And how do you build back up to where it is, wherever it is that you want to be, not people's expectations.
I got a statue sitting right over there that shows me how high I can go.
Right.
But it sits on a shelf and tells me you can get here. I just don't know how.
Right.
There's no, and right. That's the beauty of creativity. You know, what I've discovered is, like I said, I'm right back where I started. You know, I never believed, because I don't have a tenor voice like Usher and Trey Songz and all those cats. You know, I have a unique voice. Well, it takes a lot of courage, just like Macklemore demonstrates with the style of hip hop that he has. Not everybody likes him.
Right.
But he still walks past his fears and puts the music out anyway. And that's part of it's funny because, you know, early on we would talk, and his story was like mine. He was enthralled and captivated by music, and he told his story, and he would do it for anybody, anywhere. And I'm still the guy. I'll sing anywhere, anytime, for anyone. You know, that's who I've always been since I was a kid. But his journey was compacted into about an 8-year period. Mine was elongated over like 40 years. You know what I'm saying? Right. But it's basically, there's a lot of similarities with him, and that's why we're always going to be friends. Because we came from basically the same place. But that statue tells me you can do this, and at the same time, it tells me you'll never do this. Because of all the other people who get the statues, right? Not because of the people who don't get the statues. It's because of the people who do get them. And it's very odd. That's the one thing about success that I caution people about. Be careful what you wish for, because you're gonna get it. You know, if you want it bad enough and you work for it, if you work and work and work, it's gonna happen for you. It's just not gonna happen when you want it to. So always be ready. You just never know. I mean, you know, I got out of bed one night and sang for a guy. Look what happened.
And then you reach a new normal, and that new normal is just touring all the time and just like this drinking from a fire hose, as you called it.
That's what it was. I mean, 2 years of Fast and Furious, always going here, doing there, doing interviews. You know, it's like, you know, it took on a life of its own. And then you find, you know, like anything that is addictive, you find yourself missing it when it's not there.
Right.
You know, and if you don't know yourself well enough, if you're not built well here in your heart and your soul, it'll eat you up. I mean, I used to hang out in clubs in Seattle with members of Alice in Chains and Soundgarden and Mother Love Bone, who became Pearl Jam. Those were my drinking buddies back when I used to drink. And you know, Andy Wood was the lead singer of a group named Mother Love Bone. He was going to revolutionize. It wouldn't have been grunge if it wasn't for Andy Wood. Everybody thinks about Nirvana, but before Nirvana, there was Andy Wood and Mother Love Bone and a host of other bands. And those we all hung out together. But when those guys went off and got signed and toured and stuff, you know, there was kind of this void that was left here. And there were a lot of us who, you know, it changed everybody. It changed those guys. And, you know, Lane Staley, the first lead singer for Alice in Chains, he OD'd. Andy OD'd the day he got his tour papers showing what, you know, he thought he'd celebrate, and he OD'd on heroin. I mean, if you're not careful, if you don't know yourself and feel good about yourself on the inside, the business will kill you.
But you're right. I mean, you think of all these tragic stories of icons that have now moved on, you know, under tragic circumstances.
Amy Winehouse is the most recent tragic story. Amy Winehouse didn't have to die, but the business grew over to the point where she felt that she needed a substance to feel normal, and it killed her.
Yeah, she's the most recent one that I think about, and it's so sad because, you know, something so beautiful, such a talent.
Exactly.
Go that way, and it's just like a burnout, you know, and you see it all the time.
Well, that's the nature
so many times. Yeah,
that's the you know, you ask any kid, you know, ask any teenager between like 14 and 18, and you ask them, do you listen to the radio? And they'll say no. Well, how come? Well, they play the same songs over and over again, because that's the business.
Right.
And the business, I call it the machine, and it's like that for any job that you want to go into, be it business, finance, you know, even McDonald's becomes a grind and you get caught up in the machine. But the machine is meant to produce a product.
Exactly.
And if the product isn't being produced, they'll go find somebody to plug in who will produce the product. And when they plug it in, they run it, the throttle wide open as fast as they can for as long as they can. That's why it's hard to maintain. You don't have artists who have 5 and 6 album catalogs like it was in the 80s. You know, in the 70s and 80s, almost every major artist had 4, 5, 6 albums. You can't do that these days because, number one, the attention span of the listener is gone. You know, and number two, the business wants to make the most that they can off of whatever the artist releases.
Right.
So it's like, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. And
it's such a pressure.
Yeah. And when it comes to art, I mean, nobody rushed Picasso. Nobody rushed Michelangelo. Nobody rushed Brahms or Bach.
Right.
You know?
And music in general has changed so much. I mean, my story as a consumer of music is now that I went from, you know, buying CDs to buying digital downloads to now buying a subscription and just downloading whatever the heck I want, you know.
The business.
Yeah, it's really different, and I can just imagine how difficult it is for musicians. You know,
yeah, it's really difficult because, you know, ultimately you'd like to get paid for. Here's the problem: the artist would like to get paid for creating the music that everyone wants for free.
Right. Right.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
You know, and to his credit, Macklemore has made it in the sense he's circumvented the business and done it all by himself, which
Yeah.
more than a few artists are looking at with more envy than you could possibly fathom, because he has control over everything. It's all his.
Yeah. But even in that, there's such a high pressure. I mean, this new album of his, it's like we're all looking to it like, okay, what you got? You know?
Yeah. And it could
know?
fall, it could flop, or it could be just as big. No one knows. I personally, there is a slump that everybody goes through, and I think that he's going to go through it as well.
Yeah.
But the thing that I really admire, he's built his fan base from the ground up, and that's what it's about. You have fans, they're, it's like the Beatles.
Right.
The Beatles and the Stones have spanned generations. That's how good they were.
Yeah.
And watching what Macklemore has done, it's highly possible he could do the same thing. Prince, Prince has spanned generations. Because some of his albums weren't as great as 1999. You know what I'm saying?
People still bought him,
but still
they had to go to the store and buy them.
People still bought them, and in today's business model, not even he's putting out music because he's smart enough to go, it's going to cost me more money to put it out than it is for me that I'm going to make back.
Right.
And what the average person doesn't understand is it's a business.
Yeah.
That's why you have to pay for it. So downloading it for free is not really helping the music that you enjoy. It's actually hurting the music that you enjoy.
Right.
Combined with some other factors, the music business as a whole is not very good. But for the independent artists in your local town who is trying to, get gas and pay light bills and stuff like that, buy their music, buy their merchandise, support the music that you love, so that the people who make it can keep doing it.
Yeah, and you can get exposure to it, and how do you find innovative artists, innovative music?
Oh, there's
not just what the radio feeds you.
Yeah, there's so many ways to find music now. You want to find new music? Talk to five teenagers. They'll give you 5 different ways to find it.
Yeah.
I gotta get going.
Yeah. All right, sir. Well, I really want to thank you for coming on, and any last words that you want to give as encouragement to any aspiring artist out there that wants to do what you've done?
The most important lesson that you have to learn and have to accept: there are no shortcuts. The 3 words that will make sure that you will be successful on whatever level you choose to be: practice, practice, practice.
Right. There are no shortcuts.
There are no shortcuts.
Very much. So this is Oscar Cielo Staten on Teachers Talk Live, and we have spoken to Michael the Wansley. So from Thrift Shop and many other things that we're hoping he will do. So thank you very much, sir. And
don't forget, you can follow me on social media.
Yes, tell us how to find you.
I'm on Twitter and Instagram under @TEEWANZ, and you can find me on Facebook at the Wanz, and I'm on SoundCloud. You just search for the Wanz and you'll find me. WANZ. I'm out here.
And your website?
wanzmusic.com.
Very good. And you may listen to this interview if you want to watch the video portion of it. It is at www.teachcow.com. Thank you, the Wanz.
Hey, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.